Om Shanti, good evening, and welcome to another evening of talks with Brahma Kumari's World Spiritual Organization. Brahma Kumaris is a worldwide spiritual movement which is dedicated to personal transformation and world renewal by helping individuals transform their perspective of the world from material to spiritual. In today's world where there is violence, pandemics, depression, pain, anxiety, we support the cultivation of a collective consciousness of peace and of the individual dignity of each soul, regardless of race, religion, culture, education, economic or social standing. As an organization, we explore real-life challenges aligned to the times that we live in, and through the conversations, we try and build the future that we want to live in. My name is Delon Rajpal, and I've journeyed with this organization for many years now. I'm father of 2 girls, a husband, son, and a brother. I'll be your host tonight, and the topic we'll be discussing is the second part to nurturing our children with love and wisdom. Only this time, we're looking at tools to help a child with anxiety and depression. In our previous sessions, we discussed how to get our kids to open up and talk to us. We also drew an analogy of nurturing similar to that of a plant, and we asked ourselves, what would our children need from us as parents, as teachers, and as caregivers? We established 3 things. Previously, the need for a safe and trusting environment, and one where our children will not be judged so that they can open up to parents. 2, we discussed how parents contributed to the parent-child engagement. And 3, we explored a few ways of questioning techniques so that the child would be able to trust the process and trust us. In today's discussion, we'll be exploring tools that parents, guardians, and caregivers can use to engage their children around anxiety and depression. Exams are nearing, children are in their final term, and they're being loaded with schoolwork, amongst other things, where their minds are absolutely overwhelmed with everything that's going on around them. With me on the platform today, I have 3 wonderful ladies whom I so look forward to chatting to. They are Miss Janine Turner, Sisters Dipty, Naran, and Lucille Meyer. I would like to first introduce Lucille Meyer. Lucille is the Chief Executive Officer of the Chrysalis Foundation or Academy. It's a non-profit organization based in Turkey that provides holistic healing and centered residential program for vulnerable youth across the Western Cape. Lucille has a BA, MEd in adult education, an MBA, MPhil in management coaching, and doctorate in education. She is also an integral yoga therapy teacher and a trauma release exercise provider. She is passionate about journeying alongside people to unlock their potential. Nice to meet you, Lucille. Welcome. Great. With us as well is Sister Dipty Naran. Sister Dipty is a student and teacher of the Brahma Kumaris for the past 35 years. Her professional background is in education. For many years, she has coordinated her activities of living values right across Southern Africa, and has had the opportunity to facilitate numerous trainings for educators in Africa. She is internationally acclaimed as well on the Value Program. Sister Dipty is passionate about world transformation and an excellent baker. That's what I added in. Welcome, Sister Dipty. As well, we have Janine Turner, who currently serves as the head of training and development at the Chrysalis Academy. Janine holds a BA honors degree in women's and gender studies that's from UWC, and a Master's in Development Studies from UNISA. Janine also holds several certificate courses in education, training, and development, and is a certified neuro-linguistic program life coach. Janine previously worked in government of the Western Cape. She is a tension and trauma release practice, yoga and meditation. Janine is a mom of 13 and 9-year-olds, 2 kids. Her passion and ongoing area of learning is the field of youth development, trauma, and transformational healing. Nice to meet you, Janine. Welcome. So before I start with our first guest, I would like to welcome as well all our participants on the call and mention that this is an interactive session. For the first 40 minutes, we will be discussing and chatting to the 3 guests today on the platform. And if at any point you have questions, please feel free to type it on the chat, and then later on we can come back to it and take questions from the participants on the call. So with this in mind, we can all put on our cameras, put on our mics. Wonderful. So Janine, I'd like to start talking to you. Before we even look at tools and approaches to help our small kids, right? How do we, as a parent, how do you recognize that our kids are even facing challenges? And why does it matter to intervene as parents or as caregivers? So how do we recognize it, and why does it matter to intervene?
So good evening and hello everybody, Om Shanti. I'm really happy to be here with all of you. So as parents, I think we all want the best for our children. And it's therefore important for us to understand where our children are at, and also to understand that difficulties and challenges and heavy emotions, it goes with the territory of growing up, of being a little kid, of being a tweener, of being a teenager, as well as being a young adult. And what's important, I think, as parents to know is that children experience stresses, and they experience it often in an amplified way. And one of the reasons for that is because, quite simply, the child, the teenager, the young adult, the brain is under construction. So it's important as parents to know where in which phase of development the child is at. So, for example, the part of the brain that's responsible for executive functions, so decision-making, organizing skills, planning, that part of the brain is not yet fully developed in a young child, in a teenager, including in a young adult. The emotional brain, however, the limbic brain or the mammalian brain, that part of the brain is fully active. And that is why we would find that children would experience anxiety or heavy emotions in a way that is often not understood by adults, because they would not experience it in the same way. So as parents, we need to understand the development of our children, and we need to use that as the basis for how we relate to them. And of course, understanding that children and their language, their emotional language skills may not be isn't in fact at the same level as adults. So that's why it's important to know how to relate and to connect with a child, and to help them to thrive and unleash their potential.
Thanks for that, Janine. So I like what you're saying. Absolutely, because I agree that the child's brains or the emotions is absolutely amplified. What we think is a small matter for us is 10 times, it's huge for a child. Absolutely. So often I find that some of these stresses, some of these anxieties, some of these depression-like emotions, they come up in a child Now, as a parent, what are some of the things that we should look for? I mean, I know previously when I spoke in my previous lesson, I spoke of my little one, Sonam. When she gets scared and when she gets anxious, she gets tummy pains. And often we see some of these things coming up in our child's similar to pains here and there. I mean, what are some of the things that we can look out for, and how can we unpack these feelings that they're feeling?
So I believe that one of the greatest gifts we can give our children is to cultivate self-awareness and to help children to self-identify what is happening with them. So helping children to identify the pause button, for example, and asking them, so where in your physical body do you feel what you are feeling? And then they may say, oh, I feel it in my tummy. I have a tummy ache. And that, as parents, we can then unpack and understand that it's a call or it's a cry to feel more grounded, to feel more settled, to feel more safe and secure. And we who then know how to relate to the child. So that's the example of a tummy ache, for example. A child may say, I have a headache. Is it a real headache? Is it due to what is being felt or what is happening around them? A headache may well be an indication that they are overstimulated, they are over-processing, they are overthinking, they are worrying. And then, we'll talk a bit about tools later on, but that's an indication that, okay, perhaps I need to help my child with planning, with organizing skills. They may comfort eat, that I am very familiar with my own children. And that could also be a sign that they're in need of comfort and to be grounded. So self-awareness, the pause button, that's how we can help our children when they are feeling heavy emotions and understand what they are going through.
Thanks for that, Janine. Absolutely. I also noticed some of the things that my big one, they go through lethargy. It's exam time and they show signs of nervousness, being sad, depressed. I mean, when I say lethargy, sometimes my big one is actually 14 years old, writing exam, but she's zoomed out and you can see this child is zoomed out. So, Lucille, my next question probably comes to you then, is what should I be doing as a parent when I see my kids going through this tummy ache or this headache or this comfort eating zoomed out? I mean, what are the things that I should be looking at doing?
Yeah, Om Shanti. Delon, an important question. Just to say, we are currently living in overwhelming times. Mm-hmm. It's really been difficult for families across the world, more so if people are unemployed. That's the first thing. Although this conversation is about children, I would say that everything starts with the parent or the caregiver. So if I'm a parent and I am grounded and centered, this is what my child experiences from me. So that's important. My nervous system, my way of being speaks to my child's way of being. Now, Dr. Bruce Perry was a child psychiatrist, talks about the 3 R's. The first one, Janine mentioned it, is regulation. So when a child comes to me and says, Dad, I'm feeling so anxious, the first thing we would say, put everything down, make eye contact. This sends the signal to the child, I am here for you. What you say matters to me. That's important. And so the child begins to feel safety because as a parent, I am calm and centered. So that's the regulation. And then let's talk about it. So I can say, tell me more about how you are feeling. I also used to feel so anxious. So that's the component of relating. So the child begins to settle with me, begins to open up, and begins to talk. So regulation, relate to the child. The third one then is the reasoning. Now I can begin to have the conversation. So everything really starts with the caregiver. The more the caregiver is centered and grounded, the more they influence the child in their care. I want to say, Delon, we all have expectations for our children, We want them to succeed. We want them to become X, Y, and Z. But sometimes our expectation burdens the little ones. They have to deal with exam, but they have to deal with this expectation that as caregivers we have imposed upon them. So really just a word of caution. We want our children to succeed, but we also need to be mindful about imposing this expectation on them. So I would really say, remembering the 3 R's: regulating, relating, and reasoning. The last point, Delon, just to say, of course, if a young person shows physical symptoms for a few days, it is important to perhaps seek professional care, because you're using the word anxiety and depression. So it is good to just go and check out, is everything okay? But generally we find that when we can be calm and centered, it normally helps the little one regulate and become calmer.
No, wonderful. Thank you so much, Lucille. I mean, that's fantastic advice. I love the 3 R's there. Sister Dipty, you've been in the schooling environment for quite a while. What are your thoughts on what Sister Lucille is saying? And is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
I couldn't agree more with Lucille right now, because I've really experienced that when the atmosphere in the home, when children are brought up in an atmosphere where they feel loved, understood, valued, respected, and safe, it's amazing what comes out of the child. And I've seen this. Sometimes you don't even have to have a conversation with the child, but as this child has walked in the morning at school, you know what kind of environment that child is coming from. They may be in a very simple attire and everything may look very simple, but their level of self-respect and confidence may be so great, because just before they left home, they felt a deep, deep sense of being loved. And so it's so important that children feel this. And I think that at times we try to find solutions when we see these symptoms. And we think, well, I think the child is anxious or the child is having stress. But I think one of the aspects that for me is important is that we create an environment in our homes. We create an environment with our children on a regular basis which supports something. I know that these days it's not easy for parents because they have to work hard, they come home late, at times they're stressed, even if they're working from home at the moment. There's just so much that they have to accomplish. But your presence is what does a lot of what needs to happen. Sometimes just if you are calm and you are in a space of, as Lucille said, that you have this eye contact and you are present for your child, that's all the child needs at that moment. It's like you've taken something off their heart and their shoulders just by you being present for them. So yes, very much we need to create this value-based atmosphere as an ongoing process, and not just to create remedies only when we see symptoms. And I think this is something that we have to grow in a lot more. When every home can feel safe, you draw out the best out of the child.
No, that's wonderful. And I'm going to come back to that point because I think you're making a very good point about the home. But later, let's explore that a little later. I love what you're saying now, Sister Dipty, is don't fix a child, be present for them.
Absolutely.
It's so amazing. I mean, often, and we do it. I mean, Lucille, earlier on you spoke, drop everything. I mean, we are adults, we think, and it's unconscious things sometimes. We think that we know and we have the answers to everything. So if the little one comes to you, one, you know you can still talk, or you want looking at your phone and you say, what do you want? Oh, yeah, you know, try this, try that. We all do that. But I like what Sister Dipty is saying, be present, don't fix them. Absolutely. So thus far in the conversation, I can see what we're saying is that we're not really talking about the tools, but we're saying, what's it like that the parent needs to do first? And Lucille, you spoke about being grounded. I'm going to come back. I want to explore some of these words you're talking about, grounded. And I like what Sister Dipty is saying. The environment needs to be nice. So I'm going to explore it a little later. But let's start talking right now about the tools, or some of the tools that we can be using. So Janine, earlier this year, and I know I made mention of this in my first series, is my 8-year-old, we learned a good tool to assist Sonam with her anxiety. What we did was we helped her through using art. And this child would draw out her fears, and she would draw things that would scare her, things that would make her happy. And we also created a happy place, pretty much like a sanctuary. I mean, for the participants on the call, Sonam's happy place or sanctuary is Walter Sisulu Botanical Gardens, where she loves going. She just totally loves it there. And I know it's her space where she centers, where she comes alive. So Janine, earlier on you mentioned grounding. Lucille mentioned grounding. I'd like to unpack this as another one of the tools to assist parents and children in times of anxiety and stress and depression. What can I assist? What can I do to help with the grounding?
Yeah, so that's a beautiful example that you used of, finding a happy place. So being grounded, that's one of the first R's is, to be regulated. So once you are grounded, you're actually able to see the bigger picture and able to take steps, to attend to what needs to be attended to. So the actual tools, what does grounding mean? It means being earthed, if you like. It means being connected to yourself, being fully self-aware, being able to engage all of your senses. So one simple and practical tool that anybody can do, and it can be done anywhere, is what we call earthing. It's simply taking shoes off and bare feet in the garden or on the grass or outside in nature. You mentioned Walter Sisulu Botanical Gardens. That's a beautiful space, but it can also be available at home in the community. So just simply being outside is a multi-sensory experience. You engage in all your senses, and that helps with conditioning the nervous system or regulating the nervous system. So that's one, just simply being in the garden, doing nature-based activities, whether it is sweeping up leaves. So talking to your child alongside these kinds of activities, it's also a way of taking away the fact that there are issues or we need to have a difficult conversation. So have a conversation while doing activities that could help with the child just sharing or feeling at ease to share with what they are experiencing. It's also important for parents to know that, you shouldn't necessarily have this formal way of tell me what you are feeling, tell me why are you feeling what you are feeling. So there shouldn't be this formal sit down, sitting opposite each other or next to each other and let's talk about our feelings. These are things that can happen within the safe space of the home. It can be outside, it can be while driving home from school, and also activating or asking more valuable questions. So not why do you feel the way that you feel, but tell me what's happening. What are you experiencing? What was your favorite part of your day? So more descriptive questions to allow for more conversation and more opening up. I know if I say, how was your day to my children, they're going to say fine. And that's the end of the conversation. So I definitely want to know and hear more. It's also important just as a tool to validate what the child is saying. So if the child says, I had a terrible day, this happened, that one didn't want to talk to me, I got a low mark on my test, it's important to validate them and say, oh, I understand, this must have been very difficult for you, just so that they know that you feel what they feel. So, it's important to activate our empathy, even though it may not be understood or felt the same way by us as adults. So creating a safe space in the home, a peace room, I think it is, that Sister Dipty mentioned, or just a quiet space, that also all helps with creating a sense of groundedness. And there are many more. There are absolutely many more, but it's the simple ones is also just using the outdoors as a therapeutic tool, if you like.
No, wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Janine. I also remember when we were young, and our kids don't do this so much today, but take off your shoes, go walk on the grass, little things like that. Just, no, absolutely. Love that. Lucille, you mentioned earlier on about child psychology. In my younger days, I was very interested in psychology, in human behavior, and I read several books on psychology. And a word I learned many years ago is psychosomatic. It is such a real thing, psychosomatic, in our lives today, where some physical diseases are believed to have a mental component derived from stress and derived from normal everyday living. Now, seeing our kids having a headache, and we chatted, Janine mentioned headaches is one of the ways that you will see it come out. Seeing that our children are having a headache, and I mean, instead of them popping pills and taking Panados, apart from that, is there anything else that I can help them with in terms of stimulation, brain, or not too much stimulation, but with their planning, so that it is not, the pain is not manifested as a headache?
So beautiful, that question, because it speaks to the fact that children and all of us, we are whole beings. You know what society often does? It fragments us. It says for spirituality, you go to church. If you've got head problems, you go to a head doctor. If you've got other problems, you go to another doctor. But actually, everything is integrated. So I may be very anxious, as we said, and then it shows up as a physical issue. So everything is related. It's very hard to isolate parts. So what we can do, Delon, one of the things that we have seen is that young people become anxious when they are overwhelmed. There's too much on their plate. So an important thing to recognize, as Janine was saying and I mentioned, the brain is still developing. And although many schools do well, some schools don't actually teach our children how to learn. You know, they give lots of content, but they don't show us how to learn, how to plan. So one of the things parents can do to take away this anxiety is to say, come, let me sit down with you and do some planning so that we take away the overwhelm. So what I mean by planning, I can sit with my young person. What is the test that I have? What is the content that I have to go through? So even if I have forgotten the content, I'm talking here about helping them plan, simply because that part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, is still developing. So sitting, planning with them. The second tool I love, and I taught them to my children when they were very young, is a process called mind mapping. And that is a process where we're helping them when they study. So for example, when they're studying climate change, for example, we can say to them, take a piece of paper, put climate change in the center. Now, we look at what is associated with climate change. So let me show an example, which I'm hoping our participants can see. You may not see it so clearly. Let me show another version of that. So it's really the idea where we sit with them, we put the concept in the center, and we say, now, how do you describe this? You know, and so it makes learning a little bit easier, makes it a little bit more fun with the colors. Plus, I'm using the whole of the brain, because now I'm using color, I'm drawing, and that really helps. So what we're trying to say is, let us demystify. Let's break down this word anxiety. One of the issues is overwhelm. Young people are overwhelmed by social media, by all that happens in the classroom. So it's really about planning, helping them to make a timetable. And then a tool like mind mapping is a useful tool when they're studying. And of course, when we help them schedule the timetable, they need to have breaks and they need to have some healthy snacks, so that when they're structuring the timetable, pieces of studying at a time. So it's really about breaking it down into little bits, which can become more manageable for the little one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is such good advice. Janine, is there anything that you want to add to show, to help our kids in planning?
So I started off with saying earlier, as parents, we want to see our children thrive. And what that also means is that we have to hold them accountable. And one way as a family, you know, we support each other. So I have found myself doing research for grade 3 projects in assistance to my daughter. So as it's important to, as families, have family meetings, have kids take minutes even, have an agenda for a family meeting on a weekly basis to plan together, you know, so what is needed for your big project? You know, are there any other activities that needs to be done this week? Do we need to buy anything? Do we need to read? Do we need to go to the library? So family meetings, and have that plan up in a central space. So in the kitchen, on the fridge, and that then gets everybody involved. And you can then ask at set points, not the night before, big learning, not the night before, but to ask, how far are you? How is it going? a couple of days ahead of time, particularly with the bigger projects. And it's not just the child, the parents can be part of that, the siblings, other siblings can be part of that as well. So the reminders are very important. And those are very simple tools, and it just helps also with connecting in terms of what is happening at the school, because learning does not only happen at the school, and it's not the teacher's responsibility, the educator's responsibility. The family needs to get involved. I think the values that we spoke of earlier in education, it's important to see it in a holistic way, that everyone's involved and everyone plays their part and helps the child to thrive.
I love what you and Lucille are saying. So Lucille is saying, do a plan, mind map it, be part of their solution. And you, Janine, is saying, hold them accountable, but show them as well that they have the family support, which is absolutely lovely. So there you have it. So far, we've got 3 tools. You can do art, you can ground yourself in the garden amongst nature, and you've got tools to help with planning and mind mapping. So let's talk about one more tool. And as an organization where we do meditation, it really is difficult. Sister Dipty, my next question is to you. In doing meditation for many years, I have done meditation, but look, my parents are pretty staunch in Hinduism. My kids go to a Catholic school. We're pretty open-minded, but let's think about it. Ria comes to Jessica or myself and says, Dad, I got a problem. I'm anxious, I'm depressed, I'm nervous. And then we say, okay, come, let's go meditate. It's never gonna fly in a million years. Even as an adult today, when I am stressed, the mind wanders, it goes all over the place. So imagine if that was amplified and I tell this little child, come, let's go meditate. Never gonna fly. What else, Sister Dipty, can I do to help children or Ria with her psyche to restore that calmness again?
Thank you for being so real about that, because, sometimes we're trying to find a quick fix and we say, okay, let's go and meditate. And often the child is so far from that experience at that moment where the mind is racing in so many ways. So I won't even use the word meditation at times, because maybe that's the last thing the child wants. They're already dealing with so much, and now you're saying to them, meditate. And you don't want to ever create a memory in the child that meditation is just when you are in trouble, because meditation is such a beautiful tool to grow in who you are fully. And so sometimes I wouldn't even use the word meditation, but I would always feel that it's important to create a calm space for our children. And I remember when I was a teacher at school, I always had a peace sanctuary. And that peace sanctuary was not just created by me, it was created together with the children. And they would come into that space and they would feel very safe in that space. Even in your home environment, it's a very, very beautiful creative activity as a child and parent together to be able to create a space within your home where the child can feel safe and feel relaxed. A place where there are so many associations to calm you down. So, sometimes we try and create, as I said earlier on, that our solution to stress and anxiety shouldn't be on symptoms. It's supposed to be on a lifestyle change. And when we look at it as a lifestyle change, when you are in a good space together, create resources together as a family. Also create vocabulary in your home, which is natural to words like calm, relaxed. Let's be peaceful together. It's like the more and more you create this kind of environment in your home, the more and more you're providing a tool which is authentic and natural, rather than say, let's go to a place. Because actually right now, what they are dealing with is inside their head. And we want to allow that space to calm down and relax. So, I'm also very much aware, and I just want to add a little bit to what Janine had said about family support within that. It's very important. And I'm also very much aware that these days I deal with many single parents. And sometimes in their journey, it's only the children and maybe one parent. And that parent is also a provider. They have to work. They have to make sure that the child is getting that support. And so, within all of that, we need to stay very mindful. And even within ourselves as a parent, find the tools to support you. Because as soon as you come stressed home, your child is responding to that stress. And then you say, well, let's both of us go and meditate. But it's not real. It's not genuine. So when you have happy moments together, build your resources. Don't wait for time when things are in trouble. And that is why, for me, meditation is a lifestyle process that you can introduce to your children, not only in times when they are in trouble, but rather every day as a family. You sit in moments of calmness. You sit in moments of stillness, that when those moments come, your child will automatically say, I'm just going to go take some quiet time, mommy. They will say it. You won't have to tell them. So create atmospheres, create vocabulary, create a lifestyle that supports your child.
Fantastic. Absolutely. I love what you said, because as I said, it's very difficult if I just tell Riel, come, let's go meditate. But I like what you're saying now. Create a space, create a safe room, and support it. Don't control it. I love that idea. Absolutely love that idea. Lucille, is there anything that you would like to add to help support the tools for the children and for the parents to support the kids?
Yeah, just two things that I'd like to offer for consideration. Children have very active imaginations until we tell them to stop daydreaming. They can visualize, they have very active imaginations. So one of the things we can do, if we find they tell us they become very anxious at times, then we can say to them, let's create an imaginary container. And they can conjure it up in their mind. It can be a beautiful big box, like a toy box. It can be an animal. So when they have this thing that comes up, can they take it out of their heads and put it in the imaginary container? They're not hiding it away. They're just putting it there until we can look at it tomorrow. So it's a way of helping them to resource themselves. So if I can't sleep at night, let me take what's worrying me, put it in the imaginary container. I'll come back to it again. So that's one tool. The other one, and I'd love for participants on this call to do it. When we become anxious, there's a lot going on in the head. So what we can do is to apply some lotion. So we take the right hand. Can I ask you to please do it with me? Place the right hand on the left shoulder. And now just touching the body. or applying the lotion, you know, so I'm taking my head out of my head in a sense, and I am coming back to the present moment. And then I take the left one and I put it on. So I'm applying lotion. It's a way of taking them out of the thinking and worrying back into the present moment. So these are 2 extra tools for consideration that we can use in the classroom. You know, even when children are going up and about, teacher can say, let's apply some lotion. And it's a way of bringing us into calm. Thank you.
No, that's wonderful, Lucille. I love that idea, the lotion techniques. First we heard of it. Janine, anything you'd like to, I mean, you mentioned comfort eating, a little bit of lethargy. Is there anything that you'd like to add in terms of deep relaxation and silence?
So the quality of one's life is dependent on the quality of one's sleep. So deep sleep is critical when it comes to well-being, anxiety, and any other kind of challenges that children may be experiencing. So there are different views on this, of course, but research has shown that, you know, device time, any kind of device time does affect sleep. It takes far longer for you to fall asleep. So when it comes to children, not only during exam time, but throughout the course, throughout the time, the term, it's important to be consistent in terms of sleeping times, to not have devices, you know, leading up to the sleep time, and it may vary in the household depending on the, you know, the way in which homes manage themselves, but it's important to be consistent with it. Some children may like to have a comfort object to help them as a signal that it is now bedtime. Playing music may be useful in the home as well. Certain smells may also help to signal that it is now time to go into relaxation mode. And then also the ritual, you know, just the ritual in the home is critical. So what do we do 3 hours before bedtime, you know, 2 hours, 1 hour, the minutes leading up to it. So whether it's reading, whether it's a bit of drawing, coloring in, you know, there's such a lot of these mindfulness books out there these days. So coloring in books for adults, but, you know, we can just buy from the kiddie section. It's all there. So those rituals are important to build into the sleep pattern so that we can promote good quality sleep. And, you know, different households, different age groups, the amount of sleep time, it would vary, but do something that works for the child and for the home as well. But certainly music helps, and there's so many techniques out there actually, but consistency is important.
No, absolutely. And I know, like with my little one, comfort objects. So she's got a little teddy or a little, she got a little rhino that she sleeps with. But yeah, absolutely amazing. No, thanks for that. I think we are really doing well with time. Before, I haven't looked at the chats if there's any comments or concerns there, but if we have 29 participants on the call, let's open it up to the floor and see what, if anybody has any questions, any mums and dads out there that has questions for our 3 wonderful ladies, our 3 very learned ladies. Over to you. Anyone? Okay, so Prabhashini is saying nothing on the chat. So let's open it up to the floor right now. 29 participants. Any questions? Any concerns? Nothing. Nothing. Either we did a fantastic job and we have spellbound people. There's one. Love it. Love it. From Devash. Please help with tips with sibling rivalry. Did I get that right? My chat's closed now. Please help with tips with sibling rivalries in varying degrees. Anybody wants to take that up? Janine, Lucille, Dipty? Who wants to go for that?
So I am very familiar with that. I do have a 13-year-old boy, and who is very into his privacy. And I have a 9-year-old daughter who is still very active and very in everyone's space. And I don't know if I have the solution, but what helps for me, or what helps with maintaining peace in the home, is the boundaries. So, whose space is whose. Of course, we don't talk of territory, but certainly there is ownership of this. This is your space. This is your space. Respect. So conversations around respect and cooperation is the word that I've been using the most in my home over the past period, especially during holiday times, where they are together and they spend quite a bit of time together. So I think just the cooperation, how do you play together? They love being with each other, yet they also are at loggerheads such a lot of the time. And it's usually when their personal needs for space, or for attention as well, my attention comes to the fore. And so I do find that my attention as a parent, so I do need to give Layla alone time. I do need to give Suren alone time, because it's usually the competition for attention. Many other factors as well come into play, and I have activated Sister Dipty, that peace sanctuary, and I'm very grateful to Dr. Kumaris for all the tools that my children have gained over the years. Sister Nita, Sister Mona, I don't think she's on, but the enchanted meditations, the CDs that Brahma Kumaris has, that's all part of how I work at diffusing a situation in the home. So I just also want to say deep gratitude to Brahma Kumaris, whom, my family has journeyed with for a good number of years. I don't know if that answers, but that's my experience of attending to that matter, and I expect it as well. It's part of the territory, as we say.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for the question, Devash, and thank you, Janine, for answering that. Ramon has asked that we send a recording. Absolutely, we will send you. We will be putting this recording up on our website. We will send you a link, Ramon. Kajal has a question here. How do you get your kids to listen to you when you try to create a plan routine? My child is now a teenager, but she always has been defiant. Makes things so challenging. Anyone? Lucille?
One of the things I just want to say is that we are learning to parent. We are all learning to parent. But, every piece of behavior tells a story. So even if there's sibling rivalry, or a child throwing what we can call tantrums, what is the behavior telling me? What is the story? That's the key thing, because often behavior says there's some pain, there's some discomfort that I don't have the language to voice. So, that's the first thing. Secondly, I must also say again, it comes into the role of the caregiver. We have to role model all the time. We have to role model what does a negotiated settlement look like? Because young people, they hear what we say, but actually what influences them is our behavior. And so it comes back, the more I can role model how we negotiate things, how we interact, how I solve problems with the dad or the aunt in the home. It's again what children learn, So they learn from us. So a big responsibility on us. And I hope we're going to give ourselves lots of lotion, because it's a big responsibility, I'll stop there, Delon.
No, I love what you're saying, Lucille. I mean, kids, and we read the writing on the wall several times. Kids learn from what we do, not from what we say. So absolutely, our grounding, our parenting, the choices we make as parents is absolutely important. Absolutely important. Kajal also got another comment here. Absolutely, yeah, challenging when you have had a challenging childhood. No good reference, but thanks. Yeah, no, absolutely. Often, and I mean this because, and it's a reality for me. I've got blind spots. I mean, sometimes I would act like how my dad or how my mum would have reacted when she got from work and she said, "Where's the tomatoes? Is it cut?" And I'll say, "No," and she'll be upset. And then we as parents, it broods with us, and we tend to do the same things years later. So absolutely, I mean, it's a silly example, but we've got to break that chain. We've got to break that that sort of things that's innate in us. Love that. And of course, absolutely, we can do it with meditation. Go for it, Sister Dipty.
No, I just want to add something to what we've just been talking about, and really to also say to parents that, sometimes you may feel the pressure to be that perfect parent or the one who's trying their best, because we really have to role model all of this and we really have to be it. And we're also human. So at times we do falter. But I've also seen working with children that it's a two-way process. I've seen children that have been brought up with no parental care, absolutely nothing. And I've seen these children, and today, as I'm talking here, I know of kids that have done extremely well in their life without parental care. And it's like you just have to, every scene is a unique scene, and every scene is important. So when the journey can't start one way, try and find it another way. And I remember talking to some of these kids that may have not had any parental support, but really giving them value for who they are and genuinely supporting and acknowledging their every step. It's like we need to acknowledge goodness. We don't only have to highlight when things are in trouble. And like even with rivalry, the times when they've played well together, they've talked to each other well, highlight it, acknowledge it. So when you've dealt with the speciality, the goodness of someone, they have the power to work through their own weakness. So I'm just bringing the other side of it to say that there are times parents feel overwhelmed because they couldn't provide that kind of support to their children, but know that there are different methods and the entry point is many, but stay powerful in your approach for solutions.
No, wonderful. That's such good advice. Okay, so we're about to close. Before I say bye to the lovely wonderful ladies, and before I hand over to Sister Dipty with a commentary, let's just touch on a few of the points we discussed today. So children's feelings are often amplified, and it is important as a parent we understand the children's triggers when they get a tummy ache or a headache, etc. Point number 2, before we even attempt a conversation, we use the 3R. I love that. Regulate, relate, reason. Parents and teachers themselves need to be grounded and not to put expectations on their children. And my little one's probably hearing now, and she's going to repeat this when I'm taking to school tomorrow. Number 3, don't fix a child, be present for them. Number 4, allow them to express their fears through art. Now we're talking about some of the tools they can express it through art. We also can use grounding or use nature as grounding and as a healant, and confirm that their thoughts of anxiety and depression as scary, just to validate, to say, yes, I know it is a real thing. Number 6, and Lucille spoke about plot a timetable, use mind mapping. We also spoke about create a space of silence in your home to support that space, not necessarily only tell your child, let's go meditate, but let's go spend some time in our silent space. We also did discuss help our children by using the techniques, the imaginary container. Yes, put it in there. It's overwhelming you right now in your mind, but let me get there to that point tomorrow when I'm in a better space to deal with it. But for now, let me put it in the container. And the lovely lotion technique, just to get out of your head and to feel your body. And lastly, in terms of comfort, is have a ritual, a sleep ritual, no devices, maybe no TVs for a specific time before the end. So with all that, thank you so much. We've had so much tools, so much ideas, so much advice that you have given, Lucille. Thank you so much for your presence. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you. Janine, thank you so much for all that you've been sharing with us as a parent, as an educator. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us. Sister Dipty, again, thank you so much for always being inspirational and transforming the world. With all that said and done, Lucille, Janine, thank you so much. Sister Dipty, thank you so much. I now hand it over to you, Sister Dipty, to take us through a guided meditation commentary.
Thank you, Delon.
Thank you, everyone.
So, thank you. So once again, I just invite you into a space of stillness. So much has happened this evening. So many things have been shared. And as I digest all the different energies of this evening, it gives me time to reflect on my own self. It gives me an opportunity to reflect on the children in my life. It also provides me time to look at life as a whole. In these precious moments of life's journey, where each one of us is like a precious diamond, filled with so much beauty. At times, this diamond is challenged, and this diamond is put under stress. But deep within the self, each one of us hold the highest resources. At the very core of my being, I hold peace. And each time I tap into that peace, I come back into my clarity. I'm a being of love. Beyond all the experiences of life, I am love. I activate this love that I am. And this love gives me the power to dissolve all other energies which may have distanced me from myself and those around me. I activate this love. Life is a journey a journey that can be joyful if I choose. So once again, beyond all the strain and tension and the burden that I may feel, I tap into this joy of my being. The joy once again gives me life to respond to the challenges with vigor, stamina, and a lightness. I step deep inside myself and tap into the resources that I latently hold. I awaken them. I also put them in the presence of the highest source of peace and love, and allow my own energies to be amplified. I stay present in the experience of my whole being. I am peace. I am love. I hold inner joy. And it is with this that I will respond to my life. I stay present in this experience. Om Shanti. Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.